Welcome to Transforming with Drew, where we talk about everything on the TQIA spectrum. Thank you, everybody, for coming back to Transforming with Drew. And today we have our lovely guest, Taylor, who's coming to the podcast where we talk about all things TQIA. And so, Taylor, how are you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing well. I'm over on the West Coast, so it's still in the morning. It's nice and sunny outside. Summer's winding down. But yeah, it's great over here.
Awesome. I definitely understand what you mean. Yesterday was 99 degrees and today it's 69. So we're like, excuse me, Boston, you're wrong. So would you like to introduce yourself to the audience, a little bit more about you, where you're originally from?
Yeah, so my name's Taylor. I use both she, her, and they, them pronouns. I'm originally from, I'm originally from Eugene, Oregon, but I live in Seattle, Washington now. I've lived there for 10 years next year. I moved there the weekend after I turned 21, and the rest is history, I guess you could say. I'm a managing broker for a real estate firm. I'm a drag queen. I'm an activist. Work as a managing broker for a real estate firm, so that's pretty fun. And I'm also an athlete. So I'm a trans athlete. I grew up a competitive swimmer, but mostly now it's volleyball and tennis I've been playing. Yeah, that's kind of what I've been up to. I started transitioning almost exactly a year ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you. My first dose of HRT was August 13th, 2020. So I'm a quarantine transitioner, I guess.
Same.
Yeah, so it's been interesting, right? I haven't seen people since before the pandemic, and people have seen me on social media and stuff, and so they kind of know what's going on, but it's I run into people who don't recognize me, or it's been kind of cool. And honestly, it's I think it's been a great opportunity to transition. I honestly don't know what it would have been like to transition if it wasn't for quarantine, but yeah, that's kind of been my last journey for the last year, just kind of documenting my transition on Instagram and TikTok and stuff like that. So it's been really cool.
I completely understand. I went and got top surgery a month ago, 6 weeks ago, almost 6 weeks ago. It'd be 6 weeks ago on Tuesday. And I started transitioning during the pandemic as well. It kind of forces you to sit with yourself and be like, okay, now that you're actually sitting with yourself, where are you? What are you dealing with? And you come to terms with things. And I went and saw my family the day after I had top surgery. And my grandmother kept calling me Doug, which is my dad's name, number one. Which is cute. She's like, do you want some tea, Doug, to help you with your surgery, Doug? It's true, but it's okay. And they've been calling me.
We're in the right direction.
We're in the right room. At least it begins with a D. And then we're ordering food, and my grandparents are in their late 70s. We're ordering food and stuff. And my grandfather's like, oh, did you get his order?
Oh,
my family, I
love that.
Also that. I mean, I love it. So I guess my next question would probably be, did you realize that it was time to be authentically you during the quarantine?
Yeah, so actually it's funny. My 6-week post-op for my top surgery was last Tuesday. So that's so funny. We had top surgery right around the same time. Yeah, honestly, so last year, my dad was one of my best friends, and he died suddenly last March.
Oh.
Right before the pandemic was just starting. And then I got laid off from my job, and I was just sitting there reflecting on my own mortality and reflecting on what I was doing with my life. And I think my only regret really was I never got to come out to my dad. My dad was one of my biggest supporters. We have this great story arc of just when I first came out as gay when I was in high school, we didn't really get along, and he never really understood it, but eventually we came to a really, really beautiful mutual respect and love. And after he died and the pandemic happened, and just like you said, there was just a lot of I had no other choice but to sit in my own thoughts and to really reflect of what do I want to do with my life? How am I going to be happy? And it's been such an amazing journey. I came out as non-binary first. Wasn't sure if I was going to do HRT. Didn't really know. I just knew I wasn't cis. I knew that I wasn't cisgender. And so I went on this journey. It's almost similar to my sexuality journey. I came out as bi, then I was gay, now I identify as trans. It's full circle. But with my gender identity, I came out as non-binary, and I still identify as non-binary, but I identify as a non-binary trans woman, and that like I recognize that there is a binary, but I don't really. I also recognize that I am a woman, but I don't like subscribe to like the binary definition of what it means to be a woman.
Yeah.
And so that's just been its own journey itself. Like this whole year has just been a lot of like processing and like breaking down like what I associate with masculinity and femininity and how I define gender and expression. But yeah, I mean, the pandemic really forced me to sit down with myself and be like, okay, who are we? Who do we want to be? And like, how am I going to achieve happiness? Because like, I don't have work, I don't have friends, I don't have anything. All I have is myself in my one bedroom apartment. Um, so yeah, like the pandemic really did force me to kind of have like this like fork in the road of like, what are you gonna do? Like how are you gonna live the rest of your life? And it's been amazing. I think that I think that some people who transition, like there are a lot of people who are transitioning early and earlier these days, which I think is amazing. I don't know if I could have handled it mentally, like transitioning in my
I
like
Me
early
too.
20s.
Nope.
Like there's no way I would not have been able to like advocate for myself or like be able to not be influenced by, you know, outsiders and like feel like I need to like transition a certain way. I feel like I transitioned at just the right time for me, and like I was finally mentally, physically, and like emotionally ready to transition, to be able to, you know, develop my own perspective of things. And so I think I'm, you know, transitioning right on my timeline, right when I'm supposed to, and like I'm loving the journey so far.
That is 100% absolutely beautiful because I honestly agree with you. I see a lot of these younger trans people transitioning really quick early on, like 18, 19, and I'm sitting there going, where was I when I was 18 or 19? I'm like, oh my God, I was not ready for that. I know. I was in a horrible
Seriously.
relationship. I was not, I was, at one point, I think I was even homeless. So like, no, it was not, no, I could not have been able to do that. And then I actually met my wife before we transitioned, and she was always been my biggest like number one supporter, and she's more of an advocate for me, and so I'm really grateful for that because I feel like I needed that type of support before I could have done something like that. So I don't think I could have done it. I'm 34 now. Yeah, 34 now. I just turned 34. So I'm 34 now, and I'm grateful that I'm doing it when I'm doing it. But I believe that everybody's journey is definitely their own, of course. I love that you have this reflection of being a non-binary trans woman. I absolutely love that. We don't talk about that enough, and I think that we don't really understand that a lot of non-binary people are considered under the trans umbrella anyways, because we understand that we don't align with percent of what we were assigned with at birth, and it's really beautiful to see that. So I really love that you use that term. I mean, I haven't heard that term often, but I definitely do love it. So as a non-binary trans person, woman of color, what would you say are a lot of the challenges that you've been overcoming lately?
I think a lot of it is representation. I think that it's like you know, when I first started my transition, it was like you see a lot of, you know, like I think that we're getting better with representation. Like you see people, like you see shows like Pose and like RuPaul's Drag Race, who are like, you know, we're getting little bits and pieces of it. But and that was the reason why like I wanted to document my journey on like TikTok and on Instagram, was because I didn't see people who looked like me, who was, you know, who were doing the journey like I was doing it. And like everyone's journey is like beautiful, like you said, and like I just didn't see anyone who looked like me who was going through stuff like me, and it was just really hard. I think that, you know, having people who you can identify with and people who you can um, go to for his resources and just have that kind of camaraderie with is really, really hard. And just like access to healthcare, like I think that I'm very lucky. Like I have a job, I have benefits and stuff like that, but it's really hard to navigate those things. It's really, really scary to, you know, like you're changing things with your body and you're going through all these things mentally and physically. And I think that processing those things on your own is really hard at the beginning, and being able to do your transition for yourself and making sure that you're not, you know, comparing yourself to others. You're not thinking that you need to look a certain way, or you need to act a certain way, or dress a certain way. Like there's no, like, I think that not having a destination in your transition was really important for me. Like there's no like I made it moment. I think that's just it's an ever changing process. Like I think that you're always growing. And so I don't know if there's ever going to be like an end point to my transition. I think it's always just going to be like just a journey and just a consistent like state of being of a transition. Um, and I think that honestly, the downside of transitioning during a pandemic is you don't have that like actual support, like in
Yeah.
person support. Like it's great. Like I've loved, Zoom meetings and like virtual hangouts and stuff, but like having like that sisterhood, or that just that sense of community in person was something that I really missed. Um, but yeah, I think that it's been, I know I started therapy. Like I've been such a huge proponent of like mental health and like making sure that I'm taking care of myself in that aspect as well, and making sure that I'm healing myself as I'm growing. And so I think that it's been a lot of like being able to take time for myself and put myself first during the transition, so I could like grow in a healthy way.
I completely understand. I mean, I'm very grateful that I'm able to do these interviews, via Zoom and stuff like that. But I would love to one day be able to like go in person and talk to people about what they're actually going through, like make it more like a cup of coffee. I mean, this is beautiful now as is, but I completely 100% agree. I actually have a degree in psychology, so I'm very big on the mental health aspect of life. And
Yeah.
it's crazy because like for me, like I've been looking for a new therapist because now that I have new insurance and stuff, because I went through the Planned Parenthood method because
Hmm.
my state offered telehealth, which is, people who are listening, there are certain Planned Parenthoods that let you do the transitioning hormone replacement therapy via telehealth, which is a video. So you don't actually have to go into a place and drive up maybe 2 or 3 miles to your nearest Planned Parenthood. All right, full disclosure on that one, done. But I went that route and then I got health insurance through my job. And the first thing I did right off the bat with health insurance is I need a therapist. I need a therapist. And then my therapist is like, oh, do you want a gender therapist? I was like, no, no, no. I don't need a gender therapist. I love where I'm at with my gender and what my journey is doing. I need a therapist for all this other stuff I've gone through. and
Right.
it's like half the time all they do is see the transgender part of us, and it's like, no, I've been through trauma, or I've been, I have a loss, or I've had experience like certain things, and so I think it's like just finding the right type of person for that too has been kind of interesting. So it's like not only do you need a therapist to help you with, like, for example, you lost your best friend, technically you lost your dad, and you need help with that, and it's hard to do things right, especially in the middle of the pandemic, and we don't know where we're going. I know at my building started putting mask mandatory for everybody again, so
Hmm.
we don't know what's going to happen next.
Yeah, everyone's going through a lot on top of, everything. Like it's just,
Yeah.
we're in such an unprecedented time, and like I think that a lot of people's mental health is kind of waning. I think I'm such a huge proponent of like, even if you think you're okay, I think everyone should have a therapist. Like I think
Yes.
every single person should have a therapist.
And my
Yeah.
therapist needs a therapist. So
Yes.
I 100% agree. Taylor, tell me, what are your biggest goals for your future? What is the biggest aspiration for you want for your life?
Honestly, I think it's just like living my true authentic self. I think that I finally feel alive. I think a lot of trans people kind of identify that. One of my best friends called it like my gender liberation, and it really just is this like I finally feel like I'm living, and I feel like all the things of all my trauma and all like my body image issues were all explained by transitioning. Like no matter how I was always an athlete, like working out, and no matter how masculine I looked, no matter how like ripped I looked, like I was never happy. And now that I'm finally like living my truth, and like I like who I see in the mirror, like who I see in the mirror is who I've always been on the inside.
Hmm.
Now it's like I'm living life through a different lens. Like I can see so much more clearer now, and I can like do things that truly make me happy as opposed to things that were supposed to make me happy. And so now it's just about like really centering myself and centering like well-being, and like obviously I have career goals. Like I love being a managing broker, and I want to like give access to like home ownership to queer people and trans people. I want to do all those things,
That's
but it's like it's such a huge part of me, and I want to continue representing the queer community and being an out trans athlete and like helping advocate for others. And I think just being visible is really, really important to me, and not in like a self-serving way, but in like I want to be that person that I needed when I was growing up. Like I want to be that person that I needed when I was a young trans person, a young queer person of color. Like I want to be no, I want to be that person for someone else. And I think that social media, obviously there's some dark sides to social media, but there's some amazing aspects of social media where you have I love mentoring people like in person. I like meeting people in person in my own community, but social media, podcasting, all these things gives us access to thousands, hundreds of thousands, even sometimes millions of people who see our content, who are like, oh, like that person looks like me.